I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today about Skype's experience in the evolving internet ecosystem. We do consider ourselves a disruptor, but only in the most positive sense of the term, in that we enable consumers through our software to communicate in ways that were never contemplated on the traditional communications network, ways that are more engaging and more socially intimate. I would also like to mention that although we do have Silicon Valley offices, we're actually a Luxembourg-based company. And the reason I mention this is we believe that our European roots are a reflection of the true genius of the internet, and that is anyone, anywhere with a good idea and a little ingenuity can bring these innovations to consumers and benefit everyone across the globe. As identified by Bob Pepper, who I believe had to leave today, this morning, and as will be discussed across the 2 days, there's few here who would disagree that broadband is the driver for continued economic growth across the globe, for job creation, information sharing, and social interaction. It provides a means for business opportunities and engaging in communications with people who in the past you wouldn't have had the opportunity to communicate with. As the internet transforms the ways that we communicate, we believe that policymakers are going to be confronted with a number of issues, and they're already considering these issues in many countries, as we've heard this morning from our initial speakers. And that is because there's no guarantee that consumers will benefit unless we come up with some solutions to address these issues. These issues include widespread deployment, adoption, and of course from Skype's perspective, preserving consumer choice and the availability of applications over all broadband networks. From our view, a clear policy regime actually benefits consumers. Of course, it benefits edge providers and network operators as well, but consumers are the clear beneficiaries. And this is important to recognize because it's a false choice to say edge providers are the clear winners from a net neutrality regime. It's everyone in the internet ecosystem, but especially consumers. So I want to point you to a report from Mary Meeker, a Morgan Stanley analyst. She delivered in April of this year the State of the Internet report. In particular, she highlights two overwhelming trends in the internet ecosystem. The first is rapid adoption of mobile, or as Bob Pepper calls it, wireless, and a shift in how people are actually using social networking. We believe at Skype that these trends are really important for all companies, edge providers, and network operators to realize, because it's the consumer who's actually in control today. This is a big shift from the past where the network operator delivered the communication service and consumers had to accept what was delivered. This is true in all forms of communication, whether it's press, video delivery, or telecommunications. But today, consumers expect more. And consumers are driving these shifts towards mobile and different ways of using social networking. And we believe that consumers expect a superior experience. They expect access to innovative services, applications, and content. And they expect to be able to access these services on any device at any time from anywhere. And consumers, of course, expect more control over their communications experience. So given this demand, at Skype, we're actually experiencing a shift in the way mobile operators are delivering products and services to consumers. And in fact, these mobile operators around the globe are delivering and facilitating a more diverse array of applications to be delivered to consumers, to their consumers. So we believe this is a huge opportunity for consumers and the entire internet ecosystem, as I said, both edge providers and network operators. And from Skype's perspective, we believe we increase the value proposition for network operators because the more network operators are able to deliver what consumers want, the more services and products they'll be able to sell. So on the social networking front, one of the trends that Mary Meeker pointed to was already a revolution is taking place in the way people are using social networking. In the past, and Facebook is a perfect example, consumers would post something and broadcast to everyone in their address book. Today, we're seeing a shift where consumers want to be able to communicate with and share with smaller groups. And I think a couple weeks ago, Facebook announced a rollout of their groups feature. This is an example of the desire and the ability of consumers to control who they communicate with. And Skype also delivers communications experience that is more intimate and personal through our video calling. Not only have we rolled out 10-way video calling, but we've also announced an integration with Facebook. So that lets you bring your message, communicate with smaller groups, more intimate groups, whether it's on a personal level or in the business context. So what does this rapidly changing ecosystem mean for policymakers? It means, if they haven't already done so, policymakers need to focus their regulation on the consumer. They need to take a consumer-centric approach. So you have to ask yourself, does your policy regime, and some do, but many don't today, maximize consumer choice and enable consumers to control their communications experience? How many of you seen the movie The Social Network? Not very many people. I assume that you all know that it is about Mark Zuckerberg and the creation or invention of Facebook. So I just want to refer to you a review of the movie by Harvard professor Larry Lessig. There's been a lot of debate, especially in the U.S., about how Zuckerberg is portrayed. Is he a genius? Is he a villain? Is he a hero? And I suggest you focus on what Professor Lessig writes in his review, and I quote, "What the movie doesn't show us is an understanding of the most important social and economic platform for innovation in our history. The real genius of the internet is this. Because the platform of the internet is open and free, or in the language of the day, because it is a neutral network, a billion Mark Zuckerbergs or Nicholas Enstroms have the opportunity to invent for the platform. Skype, although no less sexy, is featured in an academic book by Professor Barbara Van Schiwick, Internet Architecture and Innovation, instead of a blockbuster movie."
Not yet.
Not yet. As she introduces her book, she argues that the very existence of Skype proves this real genius of the internet. That is, that the internet's open architecture fosters our ability to bring consumers what they want, which is innovation in both consumer and business software and the resulting economic growth. So in the United States and in other countries around the world, we've witnessed a debate about what openness principles should look like. The debate has centered on how to protect innovation, how to protect consumer choice, and of course, most importantly, how to ensure economic growth and investment. Despite this significant progress in the U.S., although in many other countries regimes have been developed, in the U.S. we are left without a policy regime. So we believe at Skype that the continued absence of a regime, whether it's in the U.S. or in other countries, leaves consumers without the protections that they deserve, leaves consumers without the ability to choose when and where they use their applications, on what devices they use their applications. And what this does is it negatively impacts the ecosystem. It means that investors feel less secure about putting money into either the edge of the network or the core of the network. And consumers are losers when edge providers and network operators are not operating in a secure investment environment. Okay. So in the future, we see an internet that's open. We see an internet that's connected. And we see this all to the great benefit of consumers. And this is an internet where voice is just another application, where you can call up the application on your mobile device, your television, your gaming console, or your computer at home. And this openness allows integration into all sorts of web content and services. And I think it's difficult for us to predict today what the future will look like. But we do believe that with the right policy environment, with cooperation between application providers, edge providers, and network operators, we will be able to deliver that future to consumers in a way that encourages investment and continued innovation. Thank you.